All right, everyone. People are still trickling in, but I'd like to go ahead and get started, mostly because I know you all are nonprofit fundraisers, and that means you lead very busy lives. Welcome to today's session. We're going to cover 5 different peer-to-peer tools. We're going to look at each tool. We're going to look at how they help raise money for you. And we're going to look at, some of the Qgiv tools that you can use to do these things, and then some immediate first steps you can take to start using these tools or start planning to use these tools. If you're not familiar with Qgiv, we're an online fundraising platform, and our #1 goal is to help nonprofits like you raise more money. And one of the ways we do that is through webinars like these. I do see that some of you on the line are current clients. That makes me super happy. If you have any questions about how to use your peer-to-peer tools after this program, or if you have questions about adding peer-to-peer tools to your account, we can totally help you with that. Let us know. We'll get you in touch with the right people. If you are not using Qgiv already, you are so welcome here. We are going to show you a couple things that Qgiv can do, but we're also going to give you some takeaways that you can apply to your current peer-to-peer fundraising. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We are recording this. We will send you a copy of the recording, and someone has already asked if I can provide a link to the slides. I can do that as well. So that is coming. You'll probably get that from me either tomorrow or Monday morning, depending on how cooperative YouTube is being. It sometimes doesn't like to upload things very quickly. There are going to be a few minutes at the end of the presentation for questions. So please use the chat box to the left, ask questions. I'll go through those and moderate them at the end. That is why my friend Andrew is on the line with me today. He is going to be available to answer some questions, particularly if they are set around pricing or working on getting that included in your Qgiv account. But he's also been working with Qgiv for years and knows this platform like the back of his hand. So he's available if I get stumped. My name is Abby Jarvis. I'm the nonprofit education manager at Qgiv, and my special area of focus is learning about best practices in the nonprofit world and then sharing those so people can raise more money. So that being said, we're going to look at 5 different nonprofit tools that nonprofits really enjoy using in the peer-to-peer world. I assume that you are familiar with peer-to-peer fundraising if you're on this call, but just in case, a peer-to-peer fundraiser is a kind of fundraiser where you recruit volunteers and donors and other supporters to raise money on your behalf. I recently participated in a peer-to-peer event, and one of the most valuable things that I encountered as a user and that I have encountered in the past as a donor is using really user-friendly design when you're setting up your peer-to-peer event. So when you set up your peer-to-peer page, try to focus on including a few design elements that will make your page easy to use. It'll make it inspiring to people who you want to have sign up to participate and raise money for you, and it will be inspiring for people who are interested in donating to you. So a few things you can add that would be really helpful is, first of all, a design that is eye-catching, but it's not overwhelming. I'm sure some of you have landed on websites that have really crazy backgrounds that make it hard to read, or they have audio that's embedded that starts automatically and it's kind of startling. So a great design will be eye-catching. It will have your branding, but it won't be kind of visually overwhelming. It's also a really great idea for you to include a story about your fundraiser and some images and video that back up that story. So in the example I have here, this is actually an example of the page I built when I was fundraising. The Lakeland Volunteers in Medicine, which is the organization I was working with, had a story, and their story was that anyone who participated or donated was helping provide peace of mind, and that was by providing healthcare to people in the community. They also gave us a ton of videos that we could use. They gave us lots of images. They gave us some talking points we could do. So they not only made their page eye-catching and interesting, they gave participants like me the tools to do that. And another thing that is really important if you're going to be raising money through this kind of fundraiser is having a strong call to action. So you want to be really specific when you're asking people to donate and asking people to sign up. I know sometimes it is kind of easy to water down those calls to action. They encouraging people to give, but not straight up asking them to do so. So keep an eye out for strong calls to action. This is another really great example of user-friendly design. This comes from our friends at Flashes of Hope. This is an event that they put on in January. So you'll notice they have a dance and heavy hors d'oeuvres and an open bar, and those things aren't really possible right now. I'm going to show you some good examples of digital campaigns, but I wanted to point out why this is such a good page. So here it is really streamlined. Everything that's here is pretty straightforward. There's not a ton of text to read. It's really easy to navigate. So they have all their navigation items up here, and there are only 3 of them. You don't have to choose from 25 different pages. Their branding is really cohesive. They have the same color scheme throughout. They've got, not on this page, they did have a really great video and some good storytelling, and then they have a really strong call to action right here that encourages people to give. So this is a really solid example. It's very straightforward, easy to use, and very effective. These are a couple other examples, and I wanted to show you these because this one on the left is a digital or virtual walk. This comes from Boone Center Incorporated. They put together a virtual 5K, and it has a lot of the same great features. It's very straightforward. It's easy to navigate. It's got strong calls to action. Their branding is fantastic. And then I also included this example from Bill's Bash. This is a virtual gala that Seattle Shakespeare put on. Their branding is adorable. It's easy to navigate. They've got a couple really great stories. This is a screenshot that I took after they had started the event. So the story isn't right here, but their branding is really solid, and you can see by the amount they raised that it was really effective. So when you look at your peer-to-peer event right now, here are some things you can do right away. One, you can use your organization's branding. And that means more than just using your logo and your name throughout. It means picking up your color scheme and incorporating that throughout your event. It also means telling a story in your own voice. So you want to be open with your story, but you do want to tell it kind of authentically. I'm sure if you are working in the development department, you have a solid grasp on what your organization's voice is. It is a really good idea to add copy that will help the people who are participating with you understand what their money will support. So add some copy and add it to your story to call out how your donors and your participants can be part of your story by supporting your organization. We also really encourage adding images and videos. You can see down here in this example, this is from Holton's Heroes. It is an adorable, absolutely adorable event. They've got some really great videos down here, and then they've got a high res image of, they call out some of their big heroes, which is wonderful. You can also go through your registration process and your donation process. Pretend you're a donor or a participant. Go through those processes and see where you get stuck or see where you get frustrated, and then kind of streamline those. And then the number one thing to remember here is no matter what you do, no matter how great your design is, it needs to be easy to access the info that you want to communicate. So if you are already running your event, go ahead and make sure that all important information like location for your event or how to participate, especially if you're participating virtually, is easy to find. And someone asked for clarification. Yes, the images I'm showing you right now are all examples of Qgiv clients and how they've used our tool to set up their event pages. So these are real life pages from real life nonprofits who are taking these best practices and really just killing the game. Another tool that is super neat, it's my favorite tool to talk about, is the idea of gamification and gamification tools. If you are not familiar with the term gamification, it really just describes the concept of adding gaming elements to a non-gaming situation. So anytime you've gone on LinkedIn and updated your profile so you can fill in that little progress meter, that's gamification. If you've ever checked in on Untapped and checked into a cool beer and gotten a badge for it, that's gamification. You can add gamification to your peer-to-peer event, and that does a few really cool things. One, it makes fundraising a game or a contest for your participants, and that makes people a lot more likely to stay engaged in the fundraising process. So they are encouraged to stay interacting with you on an ongoing basis. And if you've put on a peer-to-peer event before, you know that keeping participants engaged with you can be kind of a challenge, especially because your participants are very busy and they don't necessarily think first thing that they should get online and raise money for you. So making it a game encourages people to stay engaged on an ongoing basis. And you can also use some gamification pieces to teach your participants how to use the tools they have available to them. So one example we have is in the Qgiv system, you can kind of customize how you want your participants to get started, and you can set up a tool that shows their progress through the setup process and encourage them to finish setting up and using their page. Here is what gamification can look like in real life. Many of you have probably used fundraising thermometers before, not knowing that that is actually a gamification tool, and it is. Thermometers, leaderboards are both really fun gamification tools. Badges like the ones I have here, this fundraising Qgiv badge is something that nonprofit clients can award to their participants when they reach their fundraising goal. And it's fun to set up badges for different milestones. So you can keep people working toward the next badge, and in doing so, keep them engaged in fundraising. One of the coolest things I've seen from an incentive or a gamification perspective is vote by donating. We've seen a few different examples of events where people can vote for their favorite pet or a fashion show model by donating to that person's page. And that is a really fun way to encourage like friendly competition and get people actively raising more money. You can also try adding incentives to fundraising. We have one client called Purple Plunge that does that. They invite their top 50 fundraisers to an exclusive after party. And you can also, you can do something big like that. You could also tie incentives like raffle tickets or t-shirts or event swag to reaching different fundraising milestones. Each of these elements is really designed to get people excited about fundraising and keep them involved in the process. And this is an example of how a Qgiv client did that. This example comes from our friends over at the Brandywine Valley SPCA. And I want to point out a couple of things here. One, they have their branding that is really solid throughout their whole event. Their colors are red, black, and white. They've got their logo up here. The whole thing is just super engaging and eye-catching. They did have the thermometer to track their overall event progress, and they had a couple other cool things. So one, here is this leaderboard. They set up a leaderboard page where people could battle it out to get on the leaderboard. And people were competing to get there. They also set up these super cute badges that were specific to their organization. So they gave their fundraisers different tiers of fundraising and different dollar goals that they could meet, and they got a different dog badge every time they kind of leveled up. So the badges stuck with the branding. It was very in line with their brand and the event feel. And it also encouraged the participants to keep fundraising to try to reach the next goal and to earn the next badge. What you can do right now, if you are currently working on a peer-to-peer event, is to add some gamification pieces. This is especially important right now. I know a lot of you are running virtual events, and sometimes we feel like it's a little harder to keep people engaged when you don't have an actual in-person event to lead up to. Gamification can really help keep people inspired. So some things you can do: give your donors and your participants a way to visualize progress towards your fundraising goal. So the thermometer is super easy way to do that. It's time honored. If any of you ever ran one of those like elementary school fundraisers where you ran laps in terms for or in exchange for pledges and you got to fill up the thermometer with magic marker, you know that that can be very inspiring. Like we saw with Brandywine Valley SPCA, add a leaderboard. Get people to compete with each other to be in that leaderboard. We saw an organization here in town set up a leaderboard and had some of their fundraisers actually get in trouble at a board meeting because they were refreshing their phones to see who was in the #1 slot. So it's very inspiring for some people. Set fundraising milestones and then reward people for meeting those goals. You don't even necessarily need to use a badge system if you don't want to. You can reward people by giving them a shout out on social media or sending them a special email or a thank you video. Just let donors know that you see and appreciate their progress. And then when you can, use gamification tools to teach your participants how to use the tools they have available to them. You're a nonprofit fundraiser, you've probably been through dozens of fundraisers. These people may not have. So anything you can do to make learning the platform you've provided them fun is going to be a great move on your part. This is a very cool tool that I really appreciated when I was a fundraising participant in a peer-to-peer campaign. So we're going to look at email campaigns, and email campaigns are emails that are sent out to targeted, segmented groups of people over the course of the fundraising period and then leading up to the event. And you can send those emails based on a few different parameters or circumstances. You can target maybe participants who haven't logged in a week and give them a little nudge to kind of encourage them to get back on the horse. You can send encouraging emails to people who have reached maybe 75% of their goal and encourage them to keep going. You can even time emails to go out maybe 24 hours before your event to remind people to kind of get in those last minute donations and stay strong till the end. Whatever you do, this is a really good tool for encouraging participants who are not super engaged and then thanking and rewarding people who are. So this can all be done through Qgiv. This is an example actually of the interface you can use to do that in Qgiv, and an example of some of the parameters you can use to send these emails. These emails are really effective, mostly because they're super relevant to what the participant has been up to. So you can see here, there's this rule. You can send an email to someone who hasn't logged in the last 7 days, and you can send them information about how to get started. You can send them ideas for next steps. You can encourage them to participate, and you can really kind of target these emails so specifically that your participant feels like you're speaking to them as an individual. And you know, if you're running a big event, that can be kind of hard. So this is just one example of how you can use an email campaign. These are very effective. I actually ended up appealing for some donations when I got an email from my organization reminding me that I only had 48 hours before the event. So do look into sending email campaigns. All of these are handled or can be handled in the Qgiv system. Particularly if you are trying to send these segmented donors. Someone did ask if you could do something like this through MailChimp, and what you could do, I would have to look into it and I can ask Andrew a little more about it later, but you can pull different reports and move them into MailChimp. And I'll ask Andrew at the end about how these email campaigns will work that way. This is an example of an email that you can send. So I built this email in just a few minutes, and believe me, if I can do it, you can do it, because I am not a designer. as my designer will tell you. This is an email I set up in the Qgiv system to send out to anyone who raised more than $500. It sends automatically. I built it and scheduled it, and it will go on its own anytime someone reaches that parameter. So that's just an example of what you can do with Qgiv. You can also send emails saying, you know, congratulations, you've reached 90% of your goal. Here are some ideas for getting the last few dollars or something like that. Lots of ideas. What you can do right now, whether or not you're using Qgiv, is decide how you can segment your participant base. Qgiv clients have had a lot of success being intentional about sending people emails based on their performance, based on how engaged they've been. So think about how you can segment your donor base or your participant base. Focus on sending email content that coaches your participants on how to do things and encourages them to get involved. You want to stay away from guilt tripping. I know that is kind of an emotionally laden term, but stay away from that. I would also, ahead of time, as you are in the planning phase of your peer-to-peer event, I would build a schedule for when you're going to send emails. Maybe you'll want to send a communication the day before your event to make sure people know where to go or how to participate. Send an email a week out reminding people to get in those donations. So kind of build a calendar for yourself that will help you create some really powerful emails. And then at the end, I did just want to reiterate that it is important, especially if you are running a virtual event, to be in constant communication with people about how they can participate. That is not something we've ever really had to think about when we're putting on in-person events, but we live in crazy times. I did want to bring attention to matching gifts. This is a really cool tool you can use to raise more money at your next event. And really what it is partnering up with companies in your area that will match gifts to your nonprofit. It's really good for boosting donations in general, mostly because donors love knowing that they can make twice the impact with their regular gift. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here. In Qgiv, we do have a tool where you can let donors indicate that their gift can be matched. You can do this in the platform. You can also do it by hand if you don't have this tool in your current peer-to-peer event. The big thing to remember is that this tool should be very easy for your donors to use. People are not used to submitting matching gifts, and so the easier you can make the process, the more likely they are to do that. And then if you are working with a partner that has decided to match gifts, do recognize them publicly. They'll be more likely to continue to do that in the future. So one option that you can use in Qgiv is to include a matching gifts field on your form. You can see here it's as simple as enabling it. The donor can click a button and then they can enter the donor name. That is very straightforward for your donors. Another option you can use is a matching gifts widget. This is useful if you have an account with a matching gifts tool or another platform. So we have an example here from our friends over at Double the Donation. This is a widget you can just simply drop on your donation form. People can look and see if their employer offers a match, and then they can submit their match that way. We do see very frequently in a lot of these peer-to-peer events that people work with offline matching gifts. So a lot of that will work. Say here, the Greenhouse Garden Store has matched all funds from their employees up to $5,000. You would handle that offline, but this is a great way to recognize offline partners. So this happens all the time with peer-to-peer events, and this is a really fun way to, one, partner with people in your community and then kind of boost your fundraising. If you are currently in the middle of a peer-to-peer event, some things you can do right now is start looking at your local your relationships with local companies and see if you have any partners whose mission kind of complements yours, and then reach out to them and see if they'll do a match. Do make sure it's very easy for participants to submit matches. And then if you do have a partnership with anyone who is giving you a match, whether that's an individual or an organization, add information about the match to your pages. You'll want to share that as much as possible because people are really into doubling their impact and they will donate if you have a match. So make sure you spread the word about that. The last tool I'm going to look at in the Qgiv world is your social settings. And this is something that a lot of nonprofits actually don't know about. And it is a really simple tool that can make a big impact. So what some of the things you can do with social settings, you can use social settings to make fundraising easier for your participants. So you want your participants to share information about your fundraiser on their social channels. You want to raise awareness about your event so people will donate. And using social tools to do that is very important. You can use tools like templates, and you can encourage your participants to schedule posts. So here you can see kind of an example of a post that was made in the event. That's not me. That's a team I actually competed against. They beat me. They were really great at posting because the organization we were raising money for gave us a lot of social media templates we could use. That was especially important because we were all very busy people, as I'm sure your fundraisers are as well. We don't necessarily know the best practices for posting to social media, and having templates was a huge help. We also just launched a Facebook fundraising integration that lets participants raise money both on Facebook and on your event site, and the two fundraisers will talk to each other. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. It's very handy. I love it. So what some of these social settings that you can set up look like include templates for social media updates and fundraising appeals. You can also let people schedule tweets. So this is a tweet that I set up in an event that I was playing around with. I can set this, it was a template that was provided to me. I can set it to post to my Twitter account automatically when I've reached 50% of my goal. And that way your participants can kind of set things up and then just kind of let them run on autopilot while they're working or taking care of their families. You can also use your Qgiv account to preset thumbnails and meta descriptions for your event. And really what that is, have you ever shared a link to social media, particularly Facebook, and it pulls in a really random image and some awkward text that doesn't really mean anything? That's what we're looking to avoid with the preset thumbnails and meta descriptions. I'll show you what that looks like on the next page, but what you can do is choose an image and a sentence or two that Facebook will automatically post anytime someone shares a link to your form, which is wonderful. You can also add social sharing options to different elements of your page to encourage participation. And then you can set up a Facebook fundraisers integration that makes raising money easier, both for your participants and for you. That is something that is included in our peer-to-peer package. You don't have to pay any extra for the Facebook fundraisers integration. So that's a handy tool. You're going to want to encourage your participants to post to social media. I've already showed you a template that you can, or the idea of templates. You can also give them pictures and other resources. So what you're looking to achieve here is making your participants confident about posting to social media. Like I said, they aren't professional fundraisers. You are. You know how to ask for a donation on social media, and they don't. So give them your expertise. Setting these elements can also help make your event appear consistently across different platforms. This is an example of that, that social settings tool I showed you about. The girl who set up this fundraiser chose specifically to make the image that popped up anytime someone shared her event, this Lost Dogs Rescue picture, and then did a little intro to the event itself. This really does make posting easier for your participants, and that will make them more likely to post. This is also useful when donors share their involvement with your event. This is a screenshot of getting the Facebook fundraiser set up. If any of you have accidentally set up a peer-to-peer event, and not accidentally set up a peer-to-peer event, but had donors accidentally donate to a supporter on Facebook instead of donating on your event page, you know how frustrating that can be. Lots of participants accidentally add a donate button to their Facebook post, not knowing that it doesn't connect to the peer-to-peer page. So when you set up a Facebook fundraiser integration, you can stop that from happening. And that makes life a lot easier for your participants, and also I'd imagine your bookkeepers. When you set that up through the Qgiv platform, the the Facebook fundraisers portion of the fundraiser and the peer-to-peer portion of the fundraiser talk to each other. So if your participant has raised $500 on their peer-to-peer page and $100 on Facebook, on both places it shows that they've raised $600 total. So it's easier for everyone and a lot less confusing. When you are thinking about immediate short-term things you can do with social options, whether you do it through the Qgiv platform or whether you send it to them in an email, do give your participants templates they can use for social media posts. That will make them much more likely to post and a lot more likely to ask for support. And then along with those templates, do give them talking points or images or links to videos that they can include in their appeals. You know that video and picture make things a lot more compelling, so try to give them those options. Do you encourage social sharing by adding sharing buttons to your page? And then if you can, set up a Facebook fundraiser integration and help your participants understand how that works and why they should use it. So here are kind of 6 things you can do right now to start using these tools or improve your use of these tools. One, I would encourage you just to sit down, look at your event page like you've never seen it before, and evaluate how easy it is to donate and how easy it is to register. I would also encourage you to sit down with your team and brainstorm some ways you can keep people excited about fundraising for you. That can be gamification tools, it can be incentives, it can be digital badges, it could be lots of things. So come up with some ideas to keep people engaged. Look at ways you could improve communication with both the people who are raising money for you and the people who are donating to you. You can do that through email campaigns. You can do it through newsletters that you send out. You can do it through social media posts on your own social channels. Just look for ways to improve communication. Do decide if you're going to encourage matching gifts. If you decide you are, figure out whether you want that to be done digitally or whether you want it to be done offline. You can build a social media plan for your organization and your event. That's another good place to come up with templates and resources. And then whether or not you're using Qgiv, talk to us about how we can help you make your event a success. If you're a Qgiv client, you know you can always call us for ideas and help. And if you're not a Qgiv client, we would love to talk to you about maybe how we can help you improve your event. We are going to send you a little present after this webinar. I told you you would get an email from me with a link to the recording. I'm also going to send you this ebook that we did on marketing your peer-to-peer event. It'll include a lot of tips for the tools we just covered. I also know that I gave you a ton of information in a very short period of time. So if you do have any questions, if you're already using Qgiv, do send us an email. You can get to us at support@qgiv.com. You know you'll always get a real person if you call us. You won't have to dial through a system. And if you are not using Qgiv and you're interested in using us, you can send us a quick email at contact@qgiv.com. You'll always get a real person to talk to you, and we can help you with your fundraising. That said, do you have any questions about the tools I just covered? Andrew, I know I have a question from Victoria. Nope, that wasn't Victoria. Where did it go? You guys are asking so many questions. The thing is jumping around. Can you do an email campaign in Qgiv by pulling in an audience from MailChimp, or is it better to just kind of keep it in the email system or in the Qgiv system?
So our system can only talk to MailChimp or Constant Contact or other services.
Okay.
The services can't really bring information into the Qgiv service from the admin perspective. So if you were wanting to build a mailing list in Constant Contact, there would be some configuration through our integration system that would allow for data to just automatically send to a specific mailing list within Constant Contact or an audience within MailChimp.
Awesome. That is really helpful. I also wanted to ask about the Bloomerang integration. Grace had a question about, oh no, George had a question about using Bloomerang emails function and how that works with Qgiv's platform.
It's the same functionality as I just mentioned, where we can send information to Bloomerang. We can't pull information from Bloomerang.
Okay.
And the only time Qgiv system will pull any contacts for emailing would be for each fundraiser, and they would be able to go into their own Gmail or AOL or Yahoo or whatever account they're using, and that's just purely for those fundraisers to import those email addresses.
Okay. Thank you. And George, if you do have any questions about the Bloomerang and Qgiv integration, we can help you out. We've got a ton of people who are very knowledgeable about that integration. I've got a really interesting question from Victoria, who asked if you could make a campaign private or invite only. She is looking to do a board of directors campaign, and I just wanted to clarify, Victoria, there are ways you can set up an event to disallow people to register themselves, but allow people to donate. So in the event I participated in last year, the organization turned off any participant registrations. You could only donate. And what they did was they set up a fundraising page for each participant. So in your case, you would set up a page for each board member. You would give them the tools to kind of customize their page, or not. You could just set the page the way you want it and encourage them to share it. And then they could then use the fundraising tools to raise money and ask people to donate to their page. That has historically been a really successful way some nonprofits have gotten their board members engaged in fundraising. I know I am a board member and I am pretty comfortable asking for money, but I prefer doing it online. And especially if you have a board that is reluctant to get involved in the fundraising process themselves, which I know is a regular problem for some nonprofits, you can definitely set up an event where you give each board member their own fundraising page. They can fundraise for you, and you can not allow additional registrants. Victoria also asked, is the Facebook fundraising integration an extra cost with the peer-to-peer package? No, that is part of the peer-to-peer package. Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a part of it, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay. Victoria also had a really great question, and I'm so glad you asked this. With Qgiv, can donors set up their own campaign, like for their birthday? And the answer is yes, but you do need to do a little groundwork first. The way I've seen that work most successfully is, and I'll use this as an example. One of our clients, Leader Dogs for the Blind, has a campaign that does this. They set up a peer-to-peer page where you can choose to raise money for your birthday or a graduation or an anniversary. You choose the kind of milestone you're celebrating. You go through the registration process and set up a page, and then it functions just like any other peer-to-peer fundraiser. So yes, you can absolutely do that. If you have a question more specifically about how to do that, you can talk to our sales team if you're not using us, or your CSM, your success manager at Qgiv if you are using us. We can show you more about how that works and kind of show you what some other people are doing. Susan wanted some clarification about the Facebook fundraisers integration, and I'm just going to read this. The connection to Facebook only allows the two to talk to each other about the donation made for tracking totals. It doesn't change that we still have to get the information or get the money from Facebook. Is that correct? Andrew, how does that work? If I add a Facebook button, the organization still has to get money from Facebook, right?
Correct. So it wouldn't change the actual transaction processing. And unfortunately, what I'm sure a lot of your teams are realizing is that you're not getting a lot of information from Facebook about your donors, and that will be consistent still. But the information that is collected, whatever amount it is, will be seen in the Qgiv system, including the amount. So processing will stay the same, the amount of information will stay the same, but now there's more tracking within Qgiv for the data and for the amounts within the thermometer, as Abby had mentioned.
Perfect. Thank you. That is a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. And then I have one more question. This one is from Sam. And he said, can you clarify the difference between a peer-to-peer event and a virtual auction or gala? And then can the two be integrated? So yes, so a peer-to-peer event is an event, any event that involves you giving your supporters tools to raise money for you. Sometimes that is done in conjunction with a gala type event. Sometimes it is done alongside an auctions. Our clients get really creative with how they build these events, especially right now. We're seeing a ton of creativity from people, mostly because COVID-19 is forcing people to be creative. So you can have an auction that is kind of correlated to a peer-to-peer event, especially if we see some peer-to-peer events that kind of culminate in a crowning event, and that event does often include an auction. We do also see galas where people can raise money. An example of that would be I believe the event is called like Mr. Polk County or something. It happens here in town. You have a group of brand ambassadors for the organization. They raise money. The money is kind of tallied up and presented at a gala. So there are all kinds of different configurations you can put together to combine these different fundraising methods. If you are using Qgiv and you're asking if like an auction total amount raised and a peer-to-peer total amount raised can be integrated, yes, we have a tool that we call a fund hub, and you can kind of build a page that tracks all of the donations and money raised in a specific campaign or event. So if you wanted to do a peer-to-peer event and an auction, you could build a fund hub page that shows all of the activity for both of those events on one page. We can totally answer more questions about that if you want to talk to us. We've seen all kinds of cool events and cool virtual fundraisers that people are doing, including examples of each of those. Everyone, I know we've gone a little over the 2:30 end time, but we did manage to get to all your questions, and I'm excited to see as many questions as we had. You guys have stuck with us. You guys have stayed attentive and engaged, and I really, really want to thank you for taking time out of your day to hang out with us. Do keep an eye on your email. I'm going to send you a link to the recording of this webinar, and some of you have asked for the slides. I'll make those available as well. I'm also going to send you that ebook on marketing your peer-to-peer event and some other resources you might find helpful. If you do have any questions, do feel free to contact us. We are here and we're ready to talk to you. Just let us know how we can help. Andrew, thanks for getting on and hanging out with me and answering questions. That totally
No problem.
All right, everybody, have a great day. We will talk to you soon.